Good morning from the West Coast, everyone. Afternoon on the East Coast. My name is MItch Jackson. I have got a special guest and friend joining us today, Dan Jaffe. Dan, it's so good to see you this morning. How you doing, bud?
Awesome. And Mitch, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time and taking a few minutes to chat with me, but I'm doing great. How you keeping?
We're hanging in there, and there's a lot going on in the world between the fires on the West Coast and Hurricane Sally coming in, and things going up at your end of the world up in Toronto. But we're all getting in there. We're all helping each other out. And what I'm excited about today, Dan, is to focus on business, to show lawyers and other professionals how they can collect 90+% of their receivables in a professional and efficient fashion. And that's what today's all about, you guys. I want you guys to please hit the share button, share this out with your friends. We are on all the major platforms: Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Periscope. So if you like those platforms, you can watch the show there, both live and recorded. And that's what the show's all about today, you guys, is how lawyers can collect 90% plus of receivables without chasing clients for the money. And Dan's got an interesting history, 20 plus years of tech, startup, throw a little lawyer stuff in there. And you've got someone that really knows what he's talking about, especially in today's world where we're doing all of this with software, we're doing all of this in the cloud. And Dan, what I want to do is I'm going to bounce around to a couple of different platforms and change some settings. But while I'm doing that, can you share with our audience, both live and recorded, a little bit more about what got you interested in creating Law Expand, the company we're going to be talking about today, and what got you interested in the law?
Yeah, great questions. And again, I appreciate the time, Mitch. So again, name's Dan Jaffe. I graduated, it seems like 100 years ago, but I did a joint MBA law degree in the late 90s. And I've been in business really right out of law school and really for most of my career. I started working in a biz development capacity for a technology company in Toronto. Then that company was sold, and I then moved on to working in a technology venture capital company, really at the beginning of the internet for years, and it was an awesome ride. Then moved on to consulting with various tech companies. I then opened my law firm really to execute a specific business opportunity that was in Ontario, where I live. There's a void in the legal services market. That led me to starting my law firm, Next Law, which led me to starting my software company, Law Expand. So I have two businesses, a law firm and a software company. About 95% of my time's on the software, but it's the experience in my law firm, which is still active, that led me to building my software, because I created the software out of a need to fix a serious cash flow problem in my law firm. And then that led me to building the software and then eventually to building and founding a software company.
So cash flow, that can be a problem with a law firm, Dan?
Believe it or not.
That's what keeps a lot of lawyers up late at night, especially a lot of senior partners, management partners with big firms, right? It's one thing for us to take care of the clients. It's another thing for the clients, frankly, to take care of us, right? And that's the way things need to work in order for us to be able to provide quality legal services. COVID-19 throws a wrench into all of that. Why don't we start off with that? What are your thoughts on COVID-19 and how it's affected our receivables?
Yeah, and listen, the health concerns aside, which are paramount, and certainly wish everyone all the best in health in these really crazy times. But from a business perspective, I call it the COVID recession, and it's here to stay. And Mitch, there's three big implications for law firms, okay? And the first one is what you just mentioned, cash. Cash flow is everything. I mean, cash flow is oxygen for all law firms. It's oxygen for every business. And if you don't have enough of it, you're just not going to survive. So the lesson, every law firm needs to focus on cash flow, and you need systems in place to measure your cash flow and your collection. Now, the GOAT of management theory, Peter Drucker, said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And I have that on a big whiteboard behind me. So, the first big lesson is measure and measure your cash flow and have systems in place to improve your collections. The next impact of this COVID recession really on payment communications. I mean, lawyers hate talking to clients about collections, but we love getting paid, right? Payment communications is not an option. You have to do it to get paid. But there's real potential for client conflict. I mean, we're all trained as lawyers to keep clients up to date with their matters. Keep your client up to date, communicate, etc. But you got to do the same with payment communications. And if you don't, you really risk a chance that a client has a bad experience, even if you get the client a phenomenal result. And that could potentially, even in a worst case, even lead to a complaint to your state bar. So the lesson there for law firms, simple communications, not good enough. You need to be proactive with client communications about the payments that they owe you. The last lesson in this COVID recession, listen, COVID is a disruption everywhere around the world, but with disruptions in life, Mitch, there are opportunities. And there's a really, I know, and I could see it in the firms that we're working with, and I could see it in our own law firm, there's a huge opportunity for growth. Clients, Mitch, are going to need help with their cash flow. And if I'm sure this resonates with everyone. Clients, I believe, are going to seek out lawyers that offer payment plans. So the lesson there, if you don't offer financing or some type of payment plan, some other lawyer will, and they will take those clients and grow their practice really at your expense. So there's really this, out of darkness comes opportunity. And there's really a wonderful opportunity for law firms to really jump on.
Well, I think you grabbed a mutual friend of ours' attention, Alicia Kinchlow out of Philadelphia, an outstanding attorney and entrepreneur, everyone. Without chasing clients, can't wait to hear more. And I should point out, for those of you just joining us, those of you watching the recorded version of the show or listening to the podcast version of this, which will drop next week, we've got 4 different topics that Dan's going to walk us through, dealing with COVID recession issues as he just did, quantifying the pain that we're going to help you avoid experiencing and help your clients avoid experiencing, how to do payment plans the right way. We're going to talk a little bit more about Dan's story, but here's the thing I'm getting at. At the end of today's live broadcast, Dan's going to be extending an exclusive offer just for my audience, so that if you're interested in giving LawXpand a try, tapping into some of the powerful tools and approaches that Dan and his software provide, then at the end of the show, we'll share that information with you. You're going to have to come back, though, and pay attention until the end, right, Dan? That's our teaser. And it works. So back to COVID, there's things we're all dealing with. I think a lot of us have learned how to be proactive and help clients move along with while we're representing their cases. And we understand maybe funds aren't coming in at their end. There are different things that we can do to keep the relationship positive and moving forward so that we're creating an exemplary client experience. That's super important for all the lawyers out there, more so today than ever before. Having said that, Dan, let's talk about the second talking point, which is quantifying the pain. What do you mean by that?
You know what? Let's talk. There's a cost. There's a cost of not having an efficient payment collection systems in place. But again, let me place some context. So what's our goal?
Please.
Okay. Our goal, Mitch, law firms, when you offer payment plans or client financing, or just all law firms, you want to get to 90% plus collection rate, and you don't want to waste time and energy chasing to get paid. So let me unpack that a little bit. So let's talk about 90% plus collection rates. Collection rates, very simply, is how much you've collected compared to the total invoices that you've issued. Now, Clio, an awesome company, has an amazing report called the Clio Annual Legal Trends Report. I highly encourage everyone to dig into that. They define, and they've done data that say the growing law firms actually have a collection rate of greater than 90%. So, for example, most law firms, Mitch, that start with our software, they actually don't even know their collection rate. But there is a proxy for poor collection rates, and that's a feeling, okay? These law firms know that they're chasing clients for money. Actually, they feel it's a stress that they feel. When you feel that stress, I can tell you there's a safe bet that your collection rate is not optimal, okay? The other side of that, so you want to get at 90% plus, but you don't want to get there at all costs, meaning you don't want to get there wasting time and energy chasing clients for money. So we have a few law firms that actually use our software and our service. They have amazing collection rates, well above 90%, but they're spending, Mitch, so much time collecting. They have zero capacity to grow. So using a system like ours, they've actually freed up their time opening the law firm for growth. And that's huge stress relief. So that's the goal. Let's get to 90% plus collection rates, but do so without wasting time and energy. And that leads me to context about quantify. Like, what's the cost? There's a cost, right, of not being at 90% plus and wasting time and energy. And there's two buckets. And I'm a numbers dude. I mean, there's direct costs and there's indirect costs. So if you're billing, let's say 250,000, maybe 300,000, the direct cost obviously are lost receivables. Now, the word receivables, Mitch, we can talk about. That's an easy to say. We could all say the word receivables, but the reality is hard, right? That's receivables, money that you've earned. Like, you've kicked your butt. You've worked hard for that money. And guess what? You're not getting it. So the minimum loss for law firms in that situation could be anywhere from tens of thousands of dollars, $40,000 to $50,000 per year, and maybe more. So the law firms that we're helping, for example, they're usually billing minimum, it starts $250,000, $300,000, and we're helping them solve minimum $30,000 to $50,000 problems. And one of the things that was surprising when I started LawXpand, I would speak to lawyers and I'd say, what do you think you're dealing? Are we dealing with a $20,000 problem here? And they say, no. But over time, the numbers become clear that the problem's in fact much bigger. So the real loss of money that you've earned and you're not going to get is actually tens of thousands of dollars. Those are the direct costs that we can quantify. There's also indirect costs that are harder to quantify, but are really important, like the chase. Like, what about the time and energy wasted to chase clients for money? I mean, the cost of the chase is really hard to define, but you can't ignore it. You shouldn't ignore it. It's a real loss to your firm.
And when you say chase, Dan, what do you mean by chase? You mean like filing litigation, hiring investigators, sending it out to a collection company? What exactly is the chase?
The latter part is when you're in the worst situation, which is, I've given up and now I'm going to collect. I'm talking about the daily, hey, John or Jane Doe, you owe me X, where is it? Or all the time them calling up with confusion about their payments. What, I thought I owed this on this invoice and this invoice. Can you please send me a reconciliation? It's in the details. And I'm going to go through this where that's the chase, and that's painful, and that costs you. There's a real loss to your firm. That's the chase that I'm talking about. And that's not the only cost. There's also opportunity costs, right, that prevent you from growing. I mentioned a few law firms that are using our service that are well above 90%, but really had no time to scale because they were really spending a lot of time collecting. So in that situation, these firms consciously or subconsciously had, I call it a fear of growing, right? Let's say they're thinking about getting a client, but they say, well, I don't have time to collect. And I've heard this. Or it's going to be too hard to collect. So there's an impact of lost growth. Again, opportunity cost is high, hard to quantify, but it's real. And then the last one, and it's probably because I have gray hair here, is the stress, okay? I don't know how you quantify stress. I don't know what that's worth. And that's,
I'm glad you brought that up.
I need to do a yoga session after this. Like, the stress, Mitch, is big. So, and there's costs there. So to conclude, what initially looks like direct costs of tens of thousands may in fact be a much bigger number because of these because of these indirect costs. So the cost is real, direct and indirect.
So let's unpack this just a little bit, because what I'm hearing is the system that you recommend we put into place, the software that helps us get there. The end result is a 90% plus collection success rate on the outstanding accounts. Is that correct?
That's the goal that you want.
That's the goal. Right. Okay. That's the goal. So looking at the industry in general, and here's where I'm going with that. Looking at the industry in general, what is the number on outstanding receivables for a traditional mid-level size law firm? Are we looking at 40%, 20%, 50%? Have you come up with a number? Well, just so we can all know if we're normal or not. What's going on out there.
if you look at Clio, they talk about in the 80s, they have 3 bands, right? Growing 90 and above, 70 to 80. I'm sorry, 80 to 90, you're stable, and below 80, you're not growing. So those are the bands. Those are the theoretical bands. The firms that I'm dealing with, really fall in the 3 buckets, right? They fall in the buckets of, we're actually below 85, 80, and we know we're chasing. Or the second category is they don't know the number, but they know the feeling, like I said. And the third category are people who are collecting a lot, but don't have the bandwidth because they're spending so much time collecting. So the metric of collection is critical, but that metric needs to be modified by context and resources to collect that. And if you don't have those 2, collection rates and execution time, that's the balance that we need. So that number, it's an interesting number, 90% plus, but it really needs a modifier for really to have context. So generally the firms that I'm dealing with, they know that there's an issue. They just have that feeling. And I hear that, and I was surprised. I thought, okay, you're going to contact me, you're going to know your number. People don't know the number, and they're growing crazy and they're busy and things like that. So I think if you have a feeling in your law firm that, feels a little bit like the tires are, you're moving and the tires are starting to get a little loose, that is a proxy for the 2 factors, lack of 90% plus and time and investment to chase.
I'm guessing, just having done this for 3 decades, if you feel like the tires are a little bit loose in your law firm, that doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make your law firm wrong. It probably means your law firm's doing what most of the other law firms are doing, and it's not necessarily handling your receivables the right way. In other words, you can make some easy adjustments, some simple improvements. You can tap into what Dan's talking about to get above that 80 or even that 90% rate. So don't feel bad if you're on a wobbly ride right now. The question is, what are you going to do about it?
Well, and that's a phenomenal point, because every stage of any business goes through different revenue bands. And once you hit certain revenue thresholds, you need certain systems and processes to be put in place. So guess what? When you hit that, you feel like your wheels are coming off. That ain't a bad thing. That means you're growing and you're now hitting that next threshold of business maturation. And that's a great thing. You just need your systems to catch up with that. It's not something to feel bad about. In fact, it's a badge of honor, because you're growing. You just need systems in place to support that growth so you can go to the next level. It's actually a great thing. I mean, in technology, it's usually every 6 months with your growth, things start to break. It's just the way it is. It's actually a good thing. What's more important is to recognize that, as you said, Mitch, it's okay, but as equally important is to take action. And that leads into this next thing about what is a system that will collect 90% plus? And hopefully that's okay in terms of a segue, but let me talk about the system that I believe works from experience and what we're implementing with firms. So this is the system on how to.
And while you're sharing your system, Dan, let me just reach out. I see questions in the audience. I will be bringing them on, you guys. And please share this out if you haven't already. If you've got questions for Dan, please ask them, and then we'll bring them in time allowing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dan, but we're talking about these systems.
Yeah. So goal, macro goal again. Let's collect 90% plus without chasing clients to get paid. Okay. Well, let's put some context, right? Technology, what is technology? It automates workflow and saves time. And we all know the technology benefits. Don't need to go through that here. But I got to tell you, a bad system, technology is not going to help you. Okay. The foundation of a good payment collection system that will help you get to 90% plus without wasting time has 3 stages: setup, collection, and measure. And let me unpack those, each of those stages. So let's talk stage 1. Okay. Setup. Now, just like all of our law firms, we all have intake systems for new clients. You need an intake system for payment plans. It's really important because proper setup really has actually a direct impact on your 90% plus collection rate. So there's a few key aspects of setup that I'm going to take you through. There's 5. Okay. The first one is assess risk and look for red flags. So when I say assess risk, I'm not talking about a formal credit check or a long drawn out questions. I'm sorry, or long drawn out process. Just ask questions. How are you going to pay me? Where's the cash flow coming from? If you and a client have agreed upon $750 a month, are you comfortable paying that? Does your cash flow support that? If it doesn't, well, where's it going to come from? And then use your gut to assess whether you're going to get paid. And if you are going to get paid, how difficult it's going to be. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of law firms we work with just by rote say, okay, $500 a month or $750 a month without asking any questions. Okay. And in that process, you have to look for 3 red flags where you probably should be maybe saying no, or maybe questioning whether you move ahead. And here are the red flags. And they all have to do, Mitch, with the first payment.
Okay.
You agree to a first payment and they short pay you. So let's say you agree on a $1,500 upfront retainer and they come up with $500. It's a red flag, okay? Or they change the date of the first payment. I'm going to pay you Monday. Then it comes, I can pay you in a couple of weeks from now. Another red flag. The biggest red flag by far is they renegotiate their fees with you before they pay. In those situations, you should really, I'm not saying don't do it, but you should question whether it makes sense to go.
And Dan, when you have this conversation that you've already mentioned and you're continuing to allude to, is this during the initial client consultation? Is this when the first payment is due or is late? When do you have this first down-to-earth conversation with a potential client or a client?
It's after you've closed them from a legal perspective. It's after you've bought into you as a legal professional solving their legal pain.
So they've signed the retainer agreement. They're happy. Are they out the door yet, or is this something that happens later on? I
think you lay it on. No. Listen. I believe in, as you do, Mitch, in transparency. It's you've now satisfied they're under pressure. Okay, with this legal issue. Okay, you now are going to solve that legal issue, and there's a weight on their shoulders. That's weight has been taken off. You now need to have a conversation with them about payments, and it's okay because you're already relieving a pain for them. So you're not risking the deal. In fact, you're doing something good for you, because if that client is not a client that's going to pay, you're going to have a lot of pain going forward. So it really is the appropriate time to do it, and it works really well.
Okay.
The next thing, Mitch, is you need for your first payment needs to be at least 2 to 3 times the monthly payment arrangement. Now, lawyers will tell you get 50% up front, always, always, always. And if you can, that's great. The reality is the client may not have that money. I mean, that's why they need a payment plan in the first place. So from a cash flow perspective, if you can get 2 to 3 times the monthly payment for the first payment, that's often more realistic and really represents a financial commitment from the client. So if that client can afford $500 a month, let's say that's really what they're comfortable with, try to get $1,000 or $1,500 or even more. But realistically, 2 to 3 times the monthly payment is important. The third thing, you need to have policies, defined policies when clients are going to pay late. 100% it's going to happen. Clients are going to pay late. It's just the way it is. The key is having a policy in place so you're not making rules on the fly, right? You want repeatable processes. So you can always make exceptions, but have rules. And your policy needs to cover 4 things. What circumstances would you give an extension? What are you going to do when they're late paying you? Under what circumstances would you leave the case? And if you leave the case, are you going to refund any money? You got to lay those out. Okay. And in fact, you're doing them today already. I promise you, as a law firm. It's just whether you have a policy that's consistent and repeatable, that's the issue. So have that in place. You can always do exceptions to it, because right now, Mitch, everyone has a payment collection system in place. Just may not be very good. So these are things that you would need to have in your policy. Okay. The fourth thing, and I know this is obvious, but it really doesn't happen, is put all those details in your retainer. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I say, send me your retainer, because we help law firms not only collect, we actually help them reset their whole payment collection systems on intake. So we do more than just software. And so many times I look at the retainer, and guess what? It doesn't explain. So you need to be clear how much is owed to you, when it's owed, how you're going to be paid, what happens when you don't pay, under what circumstances do you leave, and if you leave the client, what happens to the previous payments? Do you refund or no refund? Put it in. It covers you off with your state bar, and it's from a optics point of view, it's the right thing to do. Okay. The last one, Mitch. This is the most important. We can end the conversation here.
Oh, we're just getting started because there's lots of questions, but go ahead.
You got to have the no BS discussion. Okay. Before taking on a client, I always have the no BS discussion, and it's critical because it sets expectations. Okay. And here's what I say. Hey, John or Jane Doe, my job is to handle your case, and I'm going to do it. And guess what? I'm going to do it really well. That's why you're retaining me. But you have a job too. Okay. Your job, keep me up to date. Let me know what's going on. Always be truthful, etc. But you have another job, and that's to pay me on time and with the amounts that we agree to. Your job is just as important as my job. And understand that if you can't do your job and pay me, I can't do my job. And please understand that you're going to leave me with no choice but to leave your case. Okay. Now, what you say, for example, Mitch, may be different than what I would say. For example, you may include a policy, I'm not going to refund your money, or I am. Doesn't matter. The point is, don't skip the conversation. Okay. It sets the tone for a client relationship. And when you properly set up that expectation, you're going to relieve a lot of stress in managing your relationship and getting paid. So if there are situations when you have follow-up conversations and phone calls, you can always reference that conversation. And I find when you have that, clients get it, I just can't tell you how important that conversation. In fact, forget all the other stuff I just made. If you just have that conversation, that's going to improve your system. So to conclude this section about setup, a system for properly setting up payment plans is not difficult. Okay. It's not a huge investment of your time and your law firm, but I got to tell you, it's really important, and it's going to have a real impact on your collection rates. And you have a system now. The issue is whether it's good or not. So put something in place, and over time, make iterations, and it's going to get better. Okay. Does that all make sense?
It does make sense. And I want to come back to and follow up with a couple of questions. But before I forget to do so, California lawyer Lowell Steiger talks about contingency fee cases. He's avoiding them because he doesn't want to have to chase clients. I get that. On the other side of the coin, that's what we prefer to do. And we have a zero outstanding debt on our contingency fee cases, probably because of how we're set up. In other words,
that's right.
What Dan was just talking about is in our retainers law, and I know you probably have this in your retainer. We have a provision that basically says everybody's supposed to do what they're agreeing to do in this provision, in this retainer. If we don't do the work, then we're not entitled to be paid. If you don't do what you're supposed to do, then we're allowed to go into court and withdraw as your attorney of record, which is what we can easily do. So we haven't had the same experience with contingency fee cases, but I'm guessing the type of retention, contingency, hourly, flat fee, project-based, raises different types of questions, different types of concerns. We got Michael Todd, I believe, out of Australia or New Zealand. I'm sorry, Michael, but he talks about the upside of a contingency fee agreement. He believes it's best for everyone. I love contingency fee agreements. So maybe talk to us a little bit, Dan, about the different types of agreements. Do some agreements lend themselves to an attorney not getting paid more so than other types of agreements?
Well, I could tell you, it's a great question. I can tell you, Mitch, that the majority, we have a lot of family lawyers using our service. We have criminal lawyers, we have debt defense, we have bankruptcy lawyers. In those law firms, there's a lot. There tend to be, case values start at $5,000 or $4,000, and then they can scale up. And in those cases, the reality, I always go back and I start with the client. Okay. The clients don't have, so if you have a family law case, you want a $5,000 retainer. Okay. It's probably likely someone doesn't have $5,000 to write you. Okay. They don't. So they probably can get $1,000 or $1,500. So So in that case, family law, it's mostly hourly and, hourly plans. And so they can come up with 1,500 or 2,000, but you're going to have to provide some financing for that balance 3,000. And likely the case is going to blow up anyways and get to 10, 15,000 over time. People just don't have that kind of money out of pocket on day one. Same thing in criminal. I mean, criminal, there's a lot of, flat fees that are blocked and are capped and things like that. Same situation. You may say, look, I'm going to do your DUI. I'm going to do your under the influence for $5,000. But again, they may not have $5,000. So I start with the type of what kind of case matter that you do. And so it's not necessarily contingency, but people don't have that kind of money. And what we find is law firms, you generally want to try and get at least $500 a month. But I'm finding a lot of the law firms that we work with, they have clients that can probably afford maybe up to $1,000 a month. So you're in that 500 that you want minimum to probably about $1,000 of the market reality. So in those matter situations, that's where really is our sweet spot in terms of the lawyers and the law firms that are using our service.
Just wanted to give a shout out to Nick Richland of experts.com, mutual friend of Dan and me. And Maria asks, she wonders if the pandemic has resulted in lawyers moving on their rates, on their fees, offering lower price services. What have you seen regarding that?
I can tell you, we see this all the time. So lawyers, when you have proper payment plan systems in place, you don't have to lower your fees. You may, but my first inclination is extending out the payments and helping them with their cash flow. Because we as lawyers, we're all taught you don't sell on price, you sell on value, you sell on you as a lawyer, that he or you're just going to do a phenomenal job. Once you've sold that person, then it all becomes about cash flow management. And that's how, when you offer client financing with confidence, knowing that you're going to get collected, you actually can keep your fees high. You just need to work with them on cash flow. And frankly, with family law cases, like they're being drawn out a lot longer anyway. So it's not necessarily about lowering your fees. It's about more helping your clients manage their cash flow. And we're seeing that almost universally through the law firms that we're working with. And that, Mitch, brings to stage 2, which is collection. So you've now stretched things out. Now you got to collect. And that's stage 2. So stage 1 was set up, collect, and measure. Now we're at stage 2, which is collect. This is a stage, obviously, where the tire hits the road. That's where you get paid. And this is the stage where law firms execute terribly. Okay, this is the source of the costs that we spoke about. And this is the core of our advantage of our software. We do this really well as the collection stage. And again, 90% plus collection rates without wasting time and energy is our goal. Let's talk reality, though. Mitch, we spoke a little bit about, let's say the wheels are kind of coming off your car. Just because you're growing and you're doing awesome things and you're not so great on your systems yet, which is an okay problem to have. But let's be realistic. You need to set proper expectations for your law firm. There is no silver bullet to getting 90% plus collections. Okay? It takes time and it's an iterative process. And to get it right, you need to do a lot of little things right consistently. So let me explain exactly what that means. You need to remind a client to pay you. And the message needs to be clear about what they owe you, why they owe you, and when. If you don't, that may lead to confusion. The golden rule with effective receivable collection is to avoid confusion, because confusion results in a drag on your cash flow. So for example, that confusion may generate a phone call for an explanation. Your staff's time's worth money. And worse, if a client's calling you at $400 an hour, that's an expensive, not necessary phone call. That mistake is like a cut, okay? One cut is not going to kill you. But if you get hundreds of those cuts, that's going to have a huge impact on your cash flow. So the law firms that we work with, when they have these poor collection rates or have high collection rates but are spending so much time, it's because they have hundreds of cuts, sometimes thousands of cuts. And those cuts exist as a result of a poor payment collection systems, and they don't even know they're being cut. They just know the feeling of stress and the wheels are shaky, guess what? You pull the hood, you see tons of little cuts, and we see them all the time. And it's only until you look up and you start to look at it from that lens, you say, wow, I get it. Okay. So what's the lesson? To get to 90% plus collections, you need to have a solid system for tracking and reminders. This is the core. Let's talk about tracking. What are you tracking? You're tracking payments that are owed to you. Obvious, right? But where it gets challenging, Mitch, are in the exceptions. Clients miss payments. So if you have a client who owes you $250 every 2 weeks and he missed a payment, guess what? The next payment's $500. $250 coming up, $250 last time. Or they short pay you. Same client owes you $250 every 2 weeks, they pay you $150. So now next time they owe you $350. $250 coming up, $150 last time. Or they call you and they say, Dan, you know what? I have some issues. I got to pay a mortgage payment. I'm getting tight. Can I delay my payments by a week and 2 weeks? And then we'll go back to regular dates. You got to go in, change your system. Now you got to keep track of those dates. So you have all these moving parts. Okay. And that leads to also another thing that you're tracking, and that's critical, which is, I call it key dates. Your goal is you want to get paid before the end of your case, but you lose leverage. And this is different from personal injury. You lose leverage to get paid after you've delivered your result. Now, the challenge is you don't know the end date for a case when you start, but over time, Mitch, you get visibility to an end date. It's important to capture that end date and track how much is owed to you relative to that end date so you don't find yourself in a bad situation. Let me tell you an example of a bad situation, and I hear this from other law firms. At my law firm, when I started in Ontario, guess what? You need to get permission from a judge to get off your case for non-payment. It's around 60 days. If you're under that 60-day threshold, guess what? You're stuck to the case. You're now working for zero money. And I got to tell you, it's one of the low points in practicing law when a judge won't let you off the case because someone hasn't paid you. And it's your fault. You just haven't followed up on the systems. And I promise you, anyone who's watching this, who have felt this pain point, you can feel it in your stomach because there's an awful feeling working for no money. The lesson, you got to track your payment plans relative to the case end date because you may need to revise the timing of your plan to match that end date, or you may need to take action like leave, okay? This is a lot. So tracking has a lot of moving parts, and you need a system and tools to keep track of everything. Generally, law firms use spreadsheets or case management software, accounting software, and those are great. In fact, the law firms that use our software, they too were using those tools, but they came to us because over time, those tools lost their effectiveness as the law firm grows. As you said, we move up in our growth and our revenue, and the tires start to get a little loose, and you start, because cuts are happening under the hood, okay? And they came to us, these law firms, because they needed a dedicated cash flow collection system, which is what we have. The next part of the system, so we talked about tracking. You also need a system for reminders, okay? So why do you need reminders? You have to remind people to pay, Mitch, because people are busy. You're busy. Assume your clients are busy too, and assume that paying you is not your client's first priority. If it is, great, but don't assume it, okay? But there's a bigger picture than simple reminders. These reminders are the foundation of your proactive communication system regarding payments, okay? These payment reminders are effectively talking to your clients, okay? You do it wrong, there's huge consequences. Not only it may take longer to get paid, you may not get paid. And you have a real risk in your reputation, again, with the client. You could do a kick-ass job for a client, but if there's some misunderstanding with payments, it doesn't matter, okay? It's a real reputational risk to your law firm, and it can lead to a complaint to the state bar.
Can you just off the top of your head, I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe give an example of the right or wrong way to have that telephone conversation that you just mentioned with the client? There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Well, the issue is, and that leads into how to do the reminders. And you want to, and I'm going to segue into that, but they're not, we don't have telephone conversations with clients about reminders. That is actually, in the world that we live in, this higher volume, if you're having telephone conversations, that's a cut. In fact, that's a big cut, because that telephone conversation has a lot of time. You may have a conversation with a client in response to an issue, but if telephone reminders are what you're doing it wrong. I call me. I'll spend some time with you. I'm going to take. You don't need to retain nothing. Here's some advice. Call me. Don't do it this way. I can promise you, you're doing it wrong.
Where I thought you were going with this is how we respond to something a client might tell us. So if we're standing down at the courthouse, out in the hallway, talking about a case, or on the phone, talking about the client's case, giving them an update, and then you hear from the client, you know what, I didn't get paid last week like I thought I would. My payment to your law firm may be coming in late this month. How you respond to that, or how your team responds to that comment right then and there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and sort of cut you off. It's a great question, and really a couple of things come down to what's your policy. So, for example, if someone asks me that, I actually just look at my phone and I look and say, has this person been late all the time? Our software has all these flags. So within seconds, you can look and see, has this person been dragging you along? Or is this
I love that.
At a time? So if I see a lot of blue in my system, no problem. I'm going to give that person etc. If I see a list of red entries, I'm saying, it's very tough for me right now. So we have tools in our system. But generally, if I don't have those tools in a system, and I'm just don't have any system, I'm on the phone, then I'll just say, of course, let's pay me in a week, and I'll mark it down, because we're human beings at the end of the day, and you want to help out, but you got to be practical because we're in a business. And that's why payment reminders, when you get it right, you will get paid on time. You're going to keep clients happy, and it's going to enhance also your reputation as a law firm, right? You're on top of your game. So there's a lot at stakes with payment communications, and it leads into Mitch about reminders, but how to do it the right way. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick because we'll run out of time soon. But reminders need to get read. So if your clients aren't reading your reminders, you're not reminding them at all. So the way we do it, and I can tell you it's incredibly effective, is through text. 98% of people read their text, only 20% read their email, and it's similar terrible low rates for voice messaging. So the lesson, if you're not texting your clients about payment reminders, you're not reminding them at all. And that's going to hurt you from getting paid, and it's going to be a drag on your cash flow. And I'll go through these pretty quickly. Reminders need to be clear. So the reminders need to know how much they owe you, when, and why. And if you're not clear, confusion, it's a cut on you. It's going to drag on your cash flow. They need to be timely. Don't remind clients on the day they owe you. It's crazy. By the way, you owe me $300. You're going to pay me. No. It happens all the time, by the way. It's terrible. Give them heads up. Frequency. One reminder is not going to be enough to generate consistent and predictable cash flow. You need to remind multiple times to keep your payment owed top of mind, but you can't be a bother. So there's a balance, okay? And finally, your reminders have to incorporate policies, right? So these are the policies you define in the setup stage. So if you have escalated fees when late, and there's some law firms do that, or you're going to remove yourself from your client's case, incorporate that in your messaging. Again, clarity leads to cash flow effectiveness, okay? So to conclude, this stage collect obviously is critical, okay? You need a strong integrated system for tracking and reminders to do this the right way, and over time you'll make iterations to make it better. And that segues into measure, okay? We've gone setup, we've gone collect, now we're at measure, okay? Stage 3 is the final stage of getting to 90% collection rates. Again, Peter Drucker, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. In the collection context, you have to measure a few metrics, not 100, just a few. Day 1, what's your collection number? What you've collected compared to your total invoices issued. Start with a baseline and keep track, and get that number above 90. And then you want to track the time you spent to collect. We all track time in law firms, so it's easy to baseline that, how you're doing today. Track that over time, because you want that number to go down. And then in the future, there's other things you want to track, NPS score, and track an average number of days late, but that's in the future. But day 1, put in place and track your collection and the time spent. So that's how you go stage 1, set up, collect, measure. That's how you get to 90%.
So let me jump in here real quick, because you're living this every single day, and just looking at some of the questions, some of the thoughts, and I want to play off of Nick's question, which I'm going to get to in a second. Everything you're talking about, Dan, is something that your software, whether it's a download or a cloud-based solution, and I want to ask you about that. It's something the software will help law firms do for them. Everything you're referencing is what's on our phone, or what we're being reminded to do, or being calculated and monitored and tracked in your software. That software is LawXpand, and Nick asked the question, how long has LawXpand been in the market? And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but people are wondering, this is what your software does, is everything that you're telling us about, right?
That's exactly right. So everything I spoke about in terms of setup, in terms of collection, and in terms of measurement, we do it all.
Okay.
And by the way, this isn't just like you come in, you sign up. You can't just sign up with us. We actually have to, we speak with you. We understand whether we're a fit. If we're not a fit for you, we don't even bother, right? I mean, it's
good.
Perfect. We don't do trials just to try it out. We actually understand. We try and understand, and we do understand, do you have this problem? Because if we can't help you collect tens of thousands of more, we're the wrong guys for you. Just go get some simple text message reminders. That'll move your needle in your situation. We're really more of a boutique services, because the software that the software that we have basically automates all that whole collection process. But we do things like implementation, right? So we know lawyers, for example, don't have a lot of extra time. So we make it easy. We have a done for you implementation. So we virtually handhold, law firms all the way to 90% collection rate. So every lawyer that signs up with us has a cash flow expert assigned to them. And their role is to guide you every step of the way. And the guidance, Mitch, is one-on-one. It's live sessions over Zoom, nothing recorded, dedicated attention. And we take them through a 4-stage implementation that includes setup, where you and the expert would define the plan, the roadmap to achieve that collection success. And then we input all your payment plans and receivables in our software. We do it for you. And then stage 2, we do something optimized. So now we've input everything. Now, a week or two later, you're now ready to use our software to accelerate your cash collection. So your expert will teach you the best practices and tips on how to drive consistent and growing cash flow. And then stage 3 is reset. And now this happens a few weeks after you've gone through the optimization stage. And we actually, all that setup that I spoke about, the key to, we actually work with you and do that with you, because again, proper plan setup is critical to realize a 90% plus collections. And that setup happens before a client retains you. So our expert actually works with you to reset your whole client intake process. We do that with you. And when the reset's done, all your new clients are set up for cash collection success. And then our implementation moves into stage 4. This now, you're probably around 4 to 6 weeks after you started with us. Now you're ready to start growing your cash flow. We're going to monitor your progress relative to the goals defined in the setup stage with us. And we do this with periodic check-ins. So we start with monthly check-ins, and then we move to quarterly timing. So the bottom line is, we've got your back.
You do have, it sounds like you have your clients' backs. For someone like me that I'm in court trying cases, I appreciate the power of your program and what you're doing. I'm probably not going to be the person running this. I'm going to want to assign this to a team member. How does that work with your software? Can we have team members do the things that you're doing, or does it have to be the lawyer, the dentist, the doctor?
No, it's a great question, and it's actually it's either way. We have some firms that are solo that do it themselves, and then we have other firms where it gets assigned to an accounts person, and then we make their life easier, and we work in their system. So our model is flexible, and it's software based. It's all cloud based, and there's no
cloud-based.
It's all cloud-based. There's no downloads of things like that. And by the way, the team that's built this, we all have a lot of gray hair. I've worked with these dudes, and they're my co-founders. And by the way, I'm a licensed lawyer. I have another one of the founders that's licensed by the Law Society of Ontario. We're licensed. We're Law Society of Ontario, just so you know, is the largest bar largest bar in Canada. There's 15 million people in Ontario. I mean, wow. So it's the biggest. So 2 of our founding members, me and one of my colleagues, are part of that. And also the technology team, all the code's written in-house. We don't outsource a thing. These are my partners are ones I've worked with from my venture capital days. So what you have is something that's built for lawyers by lawyers in an environment with people who have a lot of gray hair and really understand what they're doing. And I'm really proud of my partners. I wouldn't be here without them. And one thing that I do want to mention is that this software that we built really is built for law firms, and I'll tell you why this matters, because why don't you just go get some text messaging and things like this is much bigger than that, because core to getting paid is communication, and you have to communicate with your clients. And in the context of payment plan, Mitch, clients are going to be paying for months, and that's a lot of communications going back and forth. Okay. Now put yourself in the client's head. Your client has fear. They're facing a legal problem. That's why they hired you. That's pressure. Now add on another pressure living in the real day COVID environment. They got kids, they got spouses, they got distance learning in their house. Money is probably not flowing, and paying your bill is probably the last thing they want to pay in the world. Okay. It's in that context that you're communicating with your client to get paid. So what you say, how you say it, when you say it, the frequency, it all matters. And that's the code that we've cracked in the context of a law firm. This was built in my law firm because I needed it. I was dying as a law firm from cash flow. My wheels were loose. My wheels were, I was going down a hill like Barney Rubble style,
I think I saw that on TikTok last night.
Yeah, I was running down. So this thing was built to solve a real problem and has been stress proofed along the way.
Those are usually the best solutions. It's, somebody sees a problem, they have the ability and expertise to fix that problem. It works in your firm, and now you can share it via the cloud with other clients and customers. So I'm not pressed for time, but I know we're going to try to wrap this up at the top of the hour, Dan. But let me take a step back. One of the ways that we've always been able to avoid outstanding receivables in our firm is it comes down to establishing a certain expectation from the very beginning between the attorney, the client, and the attorney. And under making sure they understand that we need to be at the top of their priority list if it's a monthly billable situation. If we don't get paid, then we don't work on the file. We go into court and we're not their attorneys. And you kind of set that parameter from day one. The other thing that's really come in handy over the years, and that is to create detailed monthly invoices. So in our billings, we actually describe everything we've done. It just doesn't say letter to client. It's letter to client regarding da, 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 da. We lay out and update the client as to what's happening in detail. So they're getting a detailed update each month. And also there's a summary of where we are, what's outstanding, what needs to be taken care of, and by which date. The other thing is when we have these conversations with clients, like I brought up earlier, let's say we're talking about answering some interrogatories and they happen to be late on their billings. Once we're done talking about the case, I'll circle back and say, listen, we need to make sure this invoice gets taken care of by next Friday, or a team member will have this conversation, or we can't work any further on your case. And we don't give them options. In other words, this is a business. And every time I've got a heart, and this is just a generalization, right? We always try to help whoever we can. But I've got a credenza on the far side of my office with family pictures. And every time I have to make one of these critical decisions, I look over at the family pictures, and it's like, if I answer yes to an extension of time, is it going to harm my family? If I answer no, will the sun come up tomorrow? I'm building better client goodwill. Am I helping someone? There's just so many gymnastics involved in each and every client, in each and every situation. And I love the way your software comes in and helps team members maybe avoid a lot of that. So we can set up a system in the office to take care of these receivables. And then maybe me as one of the senior partners, I can come in and personalize different things that need to be taken into consideration, especially in this challenging COVID-19 world.
Yeah. And the great thing is, with your high touch approach, that's phenomenal. When you have probably 15 plus payment plans, and we have some lawyers that actually have more than 200 payment plans in their system. You
mean different plans or 200?
Different plans.
Different plans. Okay.
And each one will have 7, 8, 9, 10. So you may have a couple thousand payments in their system. But the break point's probably around when you probably started having around 15 plans, that's where the wheels start to get a little loose.
Gotcha.
And what's interesting, Mitch, when you look at your kids and you make a decision, we've taken that look, we've actually put that into a visual system. So instead of looking at your kids, you can look at a visual system and in a second look at color. When you red, bad, blue, good, then that will help you make that decision. Those are the kind of things, because scaling, again, anyone can handle 5 plans, 10 plans. It's not hard. I could do that on a spreadsheet. It's when you start to grow and you're getting 15 above, gets a little harder to make an individual decision by looking at your kids. You need some help. And that's really where we, and again, the reason I'm passionate about it, because it saved my law firm, right? I mean, I was making those decisions. I wasn't looking at my kids. They would just pay late and I'd be like, what's going on? Like, oh man, I can't pay it today. Okay. I wasn't looking at my kids. They just didn't pay me. That, so it was really, I created this thing because I had to, right? So I really understand, every crevice and every little cut, because I lived it every day. So I'm passionate about it. It's great. And we're really helping out. And I'm happy to share these thoughts wider and how to put in place these systems, because listen, a lot of people don't need the system that we have. They have their own systems and it works great. Maybe this can help them work a little better, but there's a certain segment of the market, certain segment of the law firms who are doing above 250, 300 grand and up, where they feel like the wheels are a little loose. If you feel like your wheels are a little loose and you have more than 15 payment plans, we could probably help you.
Well, Dan, I think right now, most of us have paper cuts. Most of us are dealing with challenges. Most consumers, because of COVID-19, are having a hard time putting food on the table, getting their kids schooled, much less paying their lawyers. So anything like this that can help facilitate that process and make it easier, more client and firm cost effective, I think, is just a fantastic, state-of-the-art, needed idea in today's world. And that's why I wanted to have you on today. And that's why I wanted to share this information live and recorded with the audience. I understand, though, you are kind enough where you are extending some type of special to those people that are watching the show. What do you have in mind?
Yeah, if you go to our website, if you do hit that threshold, and I'm touching upon some of the issues that you may have in your law firm, reach out to me. We have a special for MItch Jackson folks, and
awesome.
you will be treated right. I
appreciate that.
And it's my pleasure. We have quite a number of firms in Ontario using our software. We have firms now. We're newer to the United States. We just launched firms in Illinois, in Alabama, in Florida, launching soon in New York and California. So we have a lot of people are loving what we're doing, and we're just starting. Although the software itself is very mature, because it has a lot of it comes from a proven growth inside my law firm and a number of other firms that are using it right now.
I love that it's cloud-based. I mean, right now we're all realizing most of us are working mobile. Nothing's more important than being able to access this stuff in the cloud. And that's what's kept my law firm running for the last 10 or 12 years, Dan. So for those of you watching today's live video or the recorded live video, I put up right beneath us, lawexpand.com. That's where you can reach out to Dan and take advantage of his amazing cloud-based software. And looks like they're going to roll out the red carpet if you mention my name, MItch Jackson. So that's fantastic. Dan, for those listeners listening to the podcast version of this next week, they're at mile 6 of their run. They're 20 minutes into their treadmill. They're not watching the video. They don't see lawexpand.com. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Send an email, dan@lawexpand.com. You could also go to our website, lawexpand.com. I'm on Twitter, not as active. I will be a lot more active, Dan_Joffe. But send an email, dan@lawexpand.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Easy to find me. And if you just want to chat, I could chat. I'm really into financial metrics. Numbers do.
Ooh,
okay.
ooh.
So I can talk about financial systems all day long. Call me. It's something that I get excited about.
So do you have to run at the top of the hour, or can I ask?
No, I'm good.
Okay, bonus question for those of you still sticking around. So we're using your system. We've got it set up. We're collecting, we're measuring, the funds are coming in. Does it offer us the ability to use the account receivable numbers to finance cases, to help third-party companies finance our clients' expensive cases? Can we use the data that your system's putting together to help arrange for that third-party financing?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Okay. Because I'm just thinking, because what I've noticed is a lot of these companies want answers to the questions that it sounds like your data is providing.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we have a robust, crazy, I'm looking at it right now. We have this robust product roadmap. Again, we have a lot of gray hair on this team. We're just experienced, we're friends, business partners, and we've been through this rodeo a few times. So we have look out on the roadmap. We have a very robust roadmap on where we're going, and super, super excited about where we're going.
Okay. That was unscripted. That was just an unscripted question, but I'm just thinking with all this information, if taken action on, can be power.
Awesome.
And for those of you that are litigating contingency fee cases like we are, it's nice to know where you sit. It's nice to know if your client's reimbursing you on your expenses that you're advancing and what other third-party options might be available out there. So, we're going to have you on another show and talk more about this.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Dan, listen, this was fantastic. I really appreciate you being on today's show. Dan Joffe, my name's MItch Jackson. This is Legal Hacking or HackingLaw.live. So many shows out there. And if you guys have any questions, reach out to Dan, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with him. In between now and the next show, you guys take care. Make the best that you can on this crazy journey of ours right now. And do your best to make each day a masterpiece. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Dan. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.